सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
The Bhagavad Gita is not just a relic from the past. It's not like an antique piece of wood that you have. It is a living, vibrant prescription for life. How do we know that we need the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita? Take a look at our lives. Everyone across the world is in stress, tension, agitated minds, in grief and sorrow. And in between that, of course, we experience moments of happiness, thrills, ecstasy. But compared to what we are heir to, compared to the happiness that we should be experiencing, what we are is nothing, not a patch. And this is because we haven't learned the technique of living. Just because we've come into the world, we are born in the world, and we are existing, doesn't mean we know how to live life. Existence and living are two different things. And in order to convert this mere existence, plant-like existence or animalistic existence, into a truly human experience, you need the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not enough to have respect and regard for it. It's not enough to worship it. It's not enough even to recite the verses of it. What you need to do is understand it, understand the teachings, reflect over them, and implement them in our lives. For which you need to at least understand that the Bhagavad Gita is very relevant in our lives. It is relevant at all periods of time. There are brilliant people across the world who have tapped into the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. And it is tragic that because of a mere misunderstanding, we, the inheritors of this most astounding knowledge, have no clue what it is and therefore are not benefiting from it. So before we begin, let's just take a quick look at the value of the Bhagavad Gita in our lives. What does the Bhagavad Gita do for us? Number one, it offers you the world and beyond. It gives you the world on a platter. And yet, most people believe that the Bhagavad Gita asks us to renounce what little we have of the world. No, it doesn't. It in fact gives you the prescription for gaining more of the world. To develop the merit, the power within which will command the resources of the world, rather than slavishly running after what the world has to offer. Be a master, sovereign, not a slave. And that there is much more beyond the world. The more we expand our minds, the more there is to reach out and obtain. Just as when an infant is playing with a rattle or wants a rattle, Every parent in the world would provide that infant with the rattle that it is demanding. No parent will deny that. But everyone will do everything in his or her power to introduce the infant to joys, to experiences that are far more fulfilling, far more enjoyable than a mere rattle. You get it? What that infant is capable of enjoying later in life is 1,000,000 times greater than the trivial joy that the infant gets from a mere rattle. And what we are trying to enjoy in the world is the equivalent of the rattle. And even that you don't get. Chasing after a rattle all your life. So what the Bhagavad Gita does is, okay, you want it, take it. But it also introduces you to the tremendous potential that lies beyond that rattle, and the rattle is the world. It also enables us to achieve wealth, and it teaches us how to relate to that wealth. Those who have the wealth, affluent people, don't know how to relate to it, and unfortunately, that wealth in itself becomes the source of their misery. And those who don't have wealth, don't have access to wealth, can't enjoy the benefits of the wealth. So nobody is enjoying in life. Those who have wealth destroy themselves with the wealth. Those who don't have no access to the benefits. So the Bhagavad Gita gives you the know-how, and chapter 3 is the chapter to study for action, success in the world and beyond, and to look beyond it. So how to gain the wealth of the world, and yet how to relate to it properly so that it doesn't become a tool for self-destruction, sense enjoyment. Again, there are two classes of people. The affluent class has too much sense enjoyment. And so because they indulge indiscriminately in the senses, they lose the joy of it. The more you indulge, the less you enjoy. And those who don't have, can't enjoy. They don't have the objects to enjoy. Only a Vedantin enjoys, who has the right attitude towards sense objects and sense enjoyment. Next comes action. The Bhagavad Gita, and chapter 3 in particular, gives the prescription for perfect action, the ingredients that go into perfect action. And if you put it into practice, you will achieve outstanding success. Also, it takes you to more than just money. Today, the world over, people work only for money, right? You work to make a living. I met someone the other day on Marine Drive, a lady, who said her grown-up son, he's about 35 years old, she said he does nothing, no work. And I said, how come? She says, why should he work? Without working, he earns 5 lakhs a month. So why should he work? See, this is the thing. You believe that you need to work only to make money. So if you already have the money coming in, why must you work? So you don't work. Or what does he do? Hang around the club, entertain himself, entertain others, wastes his time. So both the people who are working only to make money and the people who don't work because they already have the money, they have no access to the joys that action can bring them. Action work is not just to make money. And we'll see that as the days go by. We have 4 days, today and the next 3 days, to dissect action, analyze it, and understand it. Then comes emotion, love. The Bhagavad Gita introduces us to the concept of pure love as against the love that we claim to have. What's the difference? The love that we have is tainted by selfishness, self-centeredness, selfish interests. And therefore you find that all our relationships have gone astray because of conflict, agitation, stress. The question we need to ask ourselves is, why is it that we are experiencing conflict in our closest relationships? Matthew Arnold has written a poem called Sorab and Rustam. In that, it's a fairly long poem and I'm not going into the details of it. But Rustam was the father whose only desire, whose greatest desire was to have a son. And Sorab, his son, the only thing he wanted to do in life was to find the father. They were separated for some reason. And it is this attachment, the selfishness, that prevents them from enjoying each other's company even when they meet. And it all ends up in a horrible tragedy. And that is what each of our relationships is. So, take away the selfishness from our existing relationships. Take away the self-centeredness from our relationships, and what you get is pure love. That is what the Gita speaks of. Thought. At the intellectual level, when we speak of knowledge, we only acquire more information, more data, in fact, more things that further confuse the intellect. Development of the intellect is nothing but clarity, crystal clear thinking, the ability to see clearly what somebody is about, what the situation is, what the solution is, so on and so forth. And clarity of thinking is the number one quality that you need in order to be successful in life, in order to be happy in life, and to grow. Most of us are so confused. It's like fog in Delhi in winter. When there's thick fog, planes can't take off or land. Trains come to a grinding halt. Even cars can't move because you just can't see. And that's what happens to us at the intellectual level. So, knowledge is not about just picking up information and data that even a computer can do. But what the intellect, human intellect does, which no computer can do, is the ability to discriminate, to have that clarity of thinking, which the strength of the intellect is what the Bhagavad Gita confers on us. And finally, in the spiritual field, it's not about adding a further burden on an already burdened human being. It's about liberation, it's freedom, the ability to understand that the world and all that it has to offer is trivial and passing. It has a beginning and an end, and as chapter 5 says, Nateshu ramate buddhaha. When you understand its intrinsic value, you will not delight in it. You will not chase after it. You may have it, you may enjoy it, but you don't sell your soul to it because you understand it is passing, ephemeral, not worth investment of your heart and soul. So, all this and further, it satisfies the human quest for fulfillment, for truth, for happiness in a way that no other endeavor in life can fulfill. So, for now, for these 4 days, we are going to discuss just chapter 3, but that's not all that there is. There are 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So, let's just take a look at the overview of chapter 3 before we proceed. The first 2 verses deal with Arjuna's dilemma. Arjuna is confused. The whole of the second chapter, Krishna has eulogized knowledge, has spoken of knowledge and said that is the only thing that the human being needs. And yet, he is kind of recommending action, and not just action, ghora karma, this terrible action of having to kill your own patriarch, Bhishma, who was a sacrificial person, who sacrificed the kingdom for which these guys were fighting. Dronacharya, his guru, who taught him archery, the very knowledge with which he is going to kill Dronacharya. That's a horrible action that Arjuna's mind revolts against. And he is not clear why Krishna is condemning him to such an action. Verses 3 to 19, Krishna then goes into the logic for action, the importance of action. He introduces in this section the concept of yajna, sacrificial action, purified action, and the benefits it bestows on humanity. And he very categorically says, this world is not for the non-sacrificer. And he concludes in verse 19, Tasmat, therefore, act. Karyam karma, do what you ought to do. Samachara, well, completely, wholeheartedly, but detachedly. We'll come to that. But with all this brilliant analysis of action, Arjuna is not acting, not responding. So Krishna quickly understands that I need to change track. And then verses 20 to 24, 5 verses, he deals with emotional motivation, where there is no intellectual reasoning, but just an appeal to his emotion. It's like, if somebody visits you, you have a guest, and you ask, will you have a cup of tea? And the person says, no. Coffee? No. Green tea? No. And then you say, I'm having a cup of tea. Will you join me? Immediately the guy says, yes. Huh? What is the logic for it? No logic. If he uses his intellect, he'll say, you want to have tea? You have. I don't want. But 99% of the time you fall for it. Most people fall for it. And so does Arjuna. So at the end of these 5 verses, the assumption is that Arjuna is responding. So Krishna continues 11 brilliant verses, 25 to 35, on the analysis of action. He starts by saying, just as the unwise act, so should you act. But with a difference. For loka sangraha, this concept of loka sangraha, for the welfare of the totality, welfare of society, welfare of the nation, welfare of humanity, must be instilled in each one of us. Because only then will you blossom and grow into a towering personality. Then Arjuna asks, he is convinced, but he says, and this is very practical because every one of us experiences that. What he says is, Krishna, I know what is right. I know also what to avoid, what is wrong. What is it in me that as if by force compels me to do what I myself understand as wrong? This is what every smoker asks. I know smoking kids, they know the theory better than non-smokers do. Yet they reach out for that cigarette. What is it that drives me? to do what I don't want to do? And Krishna answers. The last 4 verses is how to remove these obstacles. It is Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. It is desire, it is anger. Rajoguna Samudbhava arises from the quality of Rajas. Mahashana, it is a great devourer, it just consumes you. Mahapapma, it agitates you. As long as there is a desire in you unfulfilled, it will not let you rest in peace. Vidhi enam iha vairinam. Know this to be the enemy here.